Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our uh, daily Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya class. So we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam continuously. So before 2 or 3 days, we cannot able to continue this class for some reason, and we are continuously reading fourth canto, chapter number 8, 65, 64 slok. Right. Today we'll read 65 number slok. So you can see at screen Srimad Bhagavatam. So before recitation, we'll recite Mangalacharan. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayo Mudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Avadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Mukam Karati Bachalam Pungam Langhaite Grim Yatkripatam Bande Sri Gurundina Tarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Isharam Namayong Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakticharu Swaminiti Namine Singita Cheta Supraneta Bhagminam Charasaplatam Prabhupada Prano Muni Bhakticharu Padam Namayong Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pasakadesha Tarine Hare Krishna. So fourth canto, eighth chapter. Dhruva Maharaj leaves home for the forest. Right. So we'll read 65 number slok. Raja Vacha. Yeah. Suto me balaka brahman strainenya karunatmana nirvasishta panchavarsa sahamatra mahan pavi. Translation: the king replied, O best of the Brahmanas, I am very much addicted to my wife, and I am so fallen that I have abandoned all merciful behavior. Even to my son, who is only 5 years old, I have vanished him and his mother, even though he is a great soul and a great devotee. Purport: in this verse, there are some specific words which are to be understood very carefully. The king said that since he was very much addicted to his wife, he had lost all his mercy. That is the result of becoming too affectionate toward women. The king had two wives. The first wife was Suniti and second was Suruchi. He was too attached to the second wife, however, so he could not behave well with Dhruva Maharaj. That was the cause of Dhruva's leaving home to perform austerities. Although as a father, the king was affectionate toward his son, he minimized his affection for Dhruva Maharaj because he was too much addicted to the second wife. Now he was repenting that both Dhruva Maharaj and his mother Sunit were practically vanished. Dhruva Maharaj went to the forest, and since his mother was being neglected by the king, she was therefore almost vanished too. The king repented having banished his boy, for Dhruva was only 5 years old, and father should not banish his wife and children and neglect their maintenance. Repentant over his neglect of both Suniti and her son, he was morose, and his face appeared withered. According to Manusmriti, one should never desert his wife and children. In a case where the wife and children are disobedient and do not follow the principles of home life, they are sometimes given up. But in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, this was not applicable because Dhruva was very mannerly and obedient. Moreover, he was a great devotee. Such a person is never to be neglected. Yet the king was obliged to banish him. Now he was very sorry. Slok 66. Apya anantam bane brahman masmadanti arbakam brika santam sayanam sudhitam parimlana mukham bhujam. Translation: My dear Brahmana, the face of my son was just like a lotus flower. I'm thinking of his precarious condition. He is unprotected. He might be very hungry. He might have lain down somewhere in the forest, and the wolves might have attacked him to eat his body. Look, 4.8.67. Ahume vata mayam daurat mayam strijitasyo padharaya yonikam premnarurukshantam navai nandam asattama asattama. Translation: Alas, just see how I was conquered by my wife. Just imagine my cruelty. Out of love and affection, the boy was trying to give up on my lap, but I did not receive him, nor did I even pat him for a moment. Just imagine how hard-hearted I am. Narad Uvacha, Mama Sucha Swatanayam Devaguptam Vishampate Tatprabhavam Avijnana Pravikrante Yasho Jagat. Translation: The great sage Narada replied, My dear king, please do not be aggrieved about your son. He is well protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although you have no actual information of his influence, his reputation is already spread all over the world. But sometimes when we hear the great sages and devotees to go to the forest and engage themselves in devotional service or meditation, we become surprised. How can one live in the forest and not be taken care of by anyone? But the answer given by a great authority, Narad Muni, is that such persons are well protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sarnagati or surrender means acceptance or firm belief that wherever the surrendered soul lives, is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is never alone or unprotected. Dhruva Maharaj, affectionate father, uh, thought his young boy, only 5 years old, to be in a very precarious position in the jungle. But Narad Muni assured him, You do not have sufficient information about the influence of your son. Anyone who engages in devotional service anywhere within in this universe is never unprotected. Text 69. Suduskaram karma krittavya lokapalair api prabhu pashyati achirato rajan yasho vipulayamastava. Translation: My dear king, your son is very competent. He will perform activities which would be impossible even for the great kings and sages. Very soon he will complete his task and come back home. You should know that he will also spread your reputation all over the world. Purport: Here in this verse, Narad Muni has described Dhruva Maharaj as Prabhu. This word is applicable to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes the spiritual master is addressed as Prabhupada. Prabhu means the Supreme Personality of Godhead and Pada means post. According to the Vaishnava philosophy, the spiritual master occupies the post of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or in other words, is the bona fide representative of the Supreme Lord. Dhruva Maharaj is also described here as Prabhu because he is an Acharya of the Vaishnava school. Another meaning of Prabhu is master of the senses. Just like the word Swami, another significant word is Suduskaram, very difficult to perform. What is the task that Dhruva Maharaj undertook? The most difficult task in life is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Dhruva Maharaj would be able to do that. We must remember that Dhruva Maharaj was not fickle. He was determined to execute his service and then come back. Every devotee, therefore, should be determined that in his life will be able to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by that process go back home, back to Godhead. That is the perfection of the highest mission of life. Slok 70 Maitro Vacha. इति देवर्षिना प्रोक्तां विश्रुता जगति पति राजा लक्ष्मण राजा लक्ष्मीम अनादृत्या पुत्रम एवान वचिन्तयात्. Translation: The great Maitra continued. The king Uttanpad, after advised by Narad Muni, practically gave up all duties in relation with his kingdom, which was very vast and wide, opulent like the goddess of fortune, and he simply began to think of his son Dhruva. Text 71. Tatraభిषिक्त प्रयतास काम उपस्या विवाहरिम समहिता पर्यचारद ऋषि आदेशना पुरुषम. Translation: Elsewhere, Dhruva Maharaj, having arrived at Madhuvana, took his bath in the river Yamuna and observed fasting in the night with great care and attention. After that, as advised by the great sage Narada, he engaged himself in worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport: The significance of this particular verse is that Dhruva Maharaj acted exactly according to the advice of his spiritual master, the great sage Narada. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati also advises that if we want to be successful in our attempt to go back to Godhead, we must very seriously act according to the instruction of the spiritual master. That is the way of perfection. There need be no anxiety over attaining perfection, because if one follows the instruction given by the spiritual master, he is sure to attain perfection. Our only concern should be how to execute the order of the spiritual master. The spiritual master is expert in giving special instructions to each of his disciples. And if the disciple executes the order of the spiritual master, that is the way of his perfection. Text 72. Tiratrante triratrante tiratrante tiratrante kapita vadarsana atma vritti anusarena masam ninya rachayam hari. Translation: For the first month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only fruits and berries on every third day, only to keep his body and soul together. And in this way, he progressed in his worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport: Kapita is a flower which is known in Indian vernacular as Kaita. We do not find an English equivalent for the name of this flower, but its fruit is generally not accepted by human beings. It is eaten by monkeys in the forest. Dhruva Maharaj, however, accepted such fruits not for luxurious feasting, but just to keep his body and soul together. The body needs food, but a devotee should not accept foodstuff to satisfy the tongue in sense gratification. It is recommended in Bhagavad Gita that one should accept as much as food as necessary to keep the body fit, but one should not eat for luxury. Dhruva Maharaj is an acharya, and by undergoing undergoing severe austerities and penances, the teachers ask how one should execute devotional service. We must carefully uh, know the process of Dhruva Maharaj's service, how severely he passed his days will be shown in later verses. We should always remember that to become a bona fide devotee of the Lord is not an easy task. But in this age, by the mercy of the Lord Chaitanya, it has been made very easy. But if we do not follow even the liberal instruction of the Lord Chaitanya, how can we expect to discharge our regular duties in devotional service? It is not possible in this age to follow Dhruva Maharaj in this austerity, but the principles must be followed. We should not disregard the regulative principles given by our spiritual master, for they make it easier for the conditioned soul. As far as ISKCON movement is concerned, we simply ask that one observe the four prohibited rules, chant 16 rounds, and instead of indulging in luxurious eating for the tongue, simply accept prasad offered to the Lord. This does not mean that with our fasting, the Lord should also fast. The Lord should be given foodstuff, which is as nice as possible, but we should not make it a point to satisfy our own tongue. As far as possible, we should accept simple foodstuff just to keep the body and soul together to execute devotional service. It is our duty to remember always that in comparison to Dhruva Maharaj, we are insignificant. We cannot do anything like what Dhruva Maharaj did for self-realization because we are absolutely incompetent to execute such service. But by the Lord Chaitanya's mercy, we have been given all concessions possible for this age. So at least we should always remember that neglect of our prescribed duties in devotional service will not make us successful in the mission we have undertaken. It is our duty to follow in these footsteps of Dhruva Maharaj, for he was very determined. We should also be determined to finish our duties to execute in devotional service in this life. We should not wait for another life to finish our job. द्वितीयं च तथा मासं सस्ते सस्ते सेवको दिने तृणापर्णादिभिः शीर्णै कृतन्नो भयरचयन् विभुम्. Translation: in the second month, Dhruva Maharaj ate only every 6 days, and for his eatables he took dry grass and leaves. Thus he continued his worship. तृतीयं चनयन् मासं नवमे नवमे हनि अभक्ष उत्तम श्लोकाम upadhavat samadhina. Translation: in the third month, he drank water only every 9 days. Thus he remained completely in trance and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is adored by selected verses. चतुर्थम अपि वै मासं द्वादशे द्वादशे हनि वायुभक्षो जिता श्वासो भयं देवम् अधारयत्. Translation: in the fourth month, Dhruva Maharaj became a complete master of the breathing exercise, and thus he inhaled air only every 12th day. In this way, he became completely fixed in his position and worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 76. Panchame masi anuprapte jita swaso nipatmaja dhayan brahma padaikena tasto sthanuru ivachala. Translation: by the fifth month, Maharaj Dhruva, the son of the king, had controlled his breathing so perfectly that he was able to stand on only one leg, just like a column stands without motion and concentrate his mind fully on the Parabrahman. Text 77. Sarvato man akrishya hidi bhutin swayam ayan bhagavato rupam nadrik nadrikshit kinchana param kinchana param. Translation: He completely controlled his senses and their objects, and in this way he fixed his mind without diverting to anything else upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport: The yogic principles of meditation are clearly explained here. One has to fix one's mind upon the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without diversion to any other objective. It is not that one can meditate or concentrate on an impersonal objective. Try to do so is simply a waste of time, for it is unnecessarily troublesome, as explained in Bhagavad Gita. Text 78. Adharam mahad adinam pradhana purusheswaram brahmadharya manasya rayalokastakam pire. Translation: When Dhruva Maharaj thus captured the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the refuge of the total material creation and who is the master of all living entities, the three worlds began to tremble. Purport: In this verse, the particular word Brahma is very significant. Brahman refers to one who not only in the greatest is the greatest, but has the potency to expand to an unlimited extent. How was it possible for Dhruva Maharaj to capture Brahman within his heart? This question has been very nicely answered by Jiva Goswami. He says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the origin of Brahman. For since he comprises everything material and spiritual, there cannot be anything greater than him. In the Bhagavad Gita also, the Supreme Godhead says, I am the resting place of Brahman. Many persons, especially the Mayavadi philosophers, consider Brahman the biggest, all expanding substance. But according to this verse and other Vedic literatures, such as Bhagavad Gita, the resting place of Brahman is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as the resting place of the sunshine is a sun globe. Srila Jiva Goswami therefore says that since the transcendental form of the Lord is the seed of all greatness, he is the Supreme Brahman. Since the Supreme Brahman was situated in the heart of Dhruva Maharaj, he became heavier than the heaviest, and therefore everything trembled in all three worlds and in the spiritual world. The Mahat Tattva, or the sum total of the material creation, is to be understood to be the ultimate end of all universes, including all the living entities therein. Brahman is the resort of the Mahat Tattva, which includes all material and spiritual entities. It is described in this connection that the Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is the master of both Pradhana and Purusha. Pradhana means subtle matter, such as ether. Purusha means the spiritual spark living entities who are entangled in the subtle material existence. This may also be described as Para Prakriti and Apara Prakriti. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna being the controller of both the Prakritis, in thus the master of Pradhan and Purusha. In the Vedic hymns, also the Supreme Brahman is described as Anta Pravishta Sasta. This indicates that the Supreme Personality of God is controlling everything and entering into everything. The Brahma Samhita 535 further confirms this. Andantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham. He has entered not only the universes but even the atom. In Bhagavad Gita 10.32, Krishna also says, Vishtabhyam idam Krishnam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead controls everything by entering into everything, by associating constantly with the Supreme Personality in his heart. Dhruva Maharaj naturally became equal to the greatest Brahman by his association and thus become the heaviest and the entire universe trembled. In conclusion, a person who always concentrates on the transcendental form of Krishna within his heart can very easily strike the whole world with wonder at his activities. This is the perfect sound of yoga performance, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 6.47. Yoginam api sarvesham. Of all yogis, the bhakti yogi who thinks of Krishna always within his heart and engages in his loving transcendental service is the topmost. Ordinary yogis can exhibit wonderful material activities known as Ashtasiddhi, eight kinds of yogic perfection, but a pure devotee of the Lord can surpass these perfections by performing activities which can make the whole world, whole universe tremble. Text 79. Yadaika padena sa, Yadaika padena sa, Parthivar Vakash, Tasto Tad Angushta Nipiditamahi, Nana Matatradham, even the Dhistitha, Tariva Shave, Tarata Pade Pade. Translation: As Dhruva Maharaj, the king's son, kept himself steadily standing on one leg, the pressure of his big toe pushed down half the earth, just as an elephant being carried on a rocks. The boat left and right with every step. Purport: the most significant expression in this verse is Parthivarka, the son of king. When Dhruva Maharaj was at home, although he was a king's son, he was prevented from getting on the lap of his father. But when he became advanced in self-realization of devotional service, by the pressure of his toe, he could push down the whole earth. That is the difference between ordinary consciousness and Krishna consciousness. In ordinary consciousness, a king's son may be refused something even by his father. But when the same person becomes fully Krishna consciousness, fully Krishna conscious within his heart, he can push down the earth with the pressure of his toe. One cannot argue how it is that Dhruva Maharaj was prevented from getting up on the lap of his father, could press down the whole earth. This argument is not very much appreciated by the learned, for it is an example of Nanga matrical logic. By this logic, one would think that because his mother in her childhood was naked, she should remain naked even when she is grown up. The stepmother of Dhruva Maharaj might have been thinking in a similar way. Since she had refused to allow him to get up on the lap of his father, how could Dhruva Maharaj perform such wonderful activities as pressing down the whole earth? She must have been very surprised when she learned that Dhruva Maharaj, by concentrating constantly on the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, could press down the entire earth like an elephant who presses down the boat on which it is loaded. So today we will stop here. Tomorrow we will continue from slok 80. So if there is any question or comments or queries, you can ask in our WhatsApp group or personal message. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Pavam Srila Guru Maharaj ki jai, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव भक्त वृंद की जय, जनिताय को सितानंद प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल।